Toma Emire, as always, stalwart of this show, guest editor and financial analyst. We're joined on Zoom by two Nigerians, one who is based here in Ghana, Arnold Dublin-Green, and has been for about 5 years. Arnold Dublin-Green, director, head of global markets, founder of Apakan, a brokerage here in Accra, and also founder of CISA FX, an FX brokerage and pricing engine online, developed because Arnold Dublin-Green thought that Ghana's FX market was going in the direction of the Nigerian FX market, the direction that it's now coming away from. So interesting, going to have some interesting market points from him today as a markets expert. And of course, we're very grateful to be joined today by Rotis Odiri, news anchor at Arise TV, a legend of mine who's had me entering into the media space, and one who has a very, very powerful voice on the African stage. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to be here.
Yes, very good, very good. Lovely to be here. All right. Where are we? Last Friday, Nigeria's new president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, suspended the country's central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, aka Emperor Mefi, 9 years after he was appointed to office to oversee the monetary policy affairs of Africa's biggest economy and most populous country. Nigeria's secret police confirmed on Saturday that the erstwhile top banker has been arrested and is in custody for interrogation. The charges he faces have not been made public, but a government press release cited an ongoing investigation of his office and planned reforms in the financial sector of the economy as reasons for the suspension. Emefiele's arrest is a build-up for months of investigation into his office by Nigeria's Department of State Services, whose bid to arrest him last December was declined by a federal high court. The secret police had accused him of terrorism financing and economic crimes, but a judge ruled that it couldn't provide evidence to support the allegations. It is not immediately clear if new findings have been made. According to analysts, Emefiele's removal from office, which is a good thing for the markets, doesn't come as a surprise, citing certain policies he introduced in recent months as controversial. Policies such as the bank's currency swap program, as well as its asset purchasing program and its decision to continuously print and lend money to the Nigerian government, leading to huge devaluations in the Nigerian Naira, and ultimately leading to a fragmented marketplace with a very large black market where the official foreign exchange rates are very different to the actual rates where normal people on the street could actually exchange, creating a very bifurcated society and increasing inequality. Emefiele has also faced criticism for his involvement in partisan politics, evidenced when he contested the presidential ticket of the ruling All Progressive Congress, and some opine that perhaps this may be part of the reason why he has been led to take this fall. Folashodun Adebisi Shonubi, a deputy governor at the bank, immediately took over as acting governor. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been in office for less than a month and has undertaken a very large number of surprise actions, including removing fuel subsidies, all of them all at once, immediately, including unifying FX rates, all of them all at once, immediately, including firing his central bank governor and firing the head of the Economic Crimes Unit, and introducing university loans for students. A number of policies all targeted at trying to meet the causes of this unhappiness amongst the Nigerian society. Here we are. We have three very, very, very knowledgeable and experienced and talented and intelligent panelists. And so we're going to go to Rotis first. Rotis, you are our honored guest this evening. I would be very grateful if you could just give us something of a summary of what's been happening in your town.
He's your town.
My town. Yeah, there's a new sheriff in town, and he's not taking any prisoners. We've been counting. You've given a good rundown of what he's been doing, but yeah, 16 days in office, and he's already just, he's moving. He's hit the ground running. This is, of course, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress Party, and essentially, he removed fuel subsidies before he even came into office. The fuel subsidy announcement, the removal of it, was on his inauguration day speech.
During the speech, I hear prices actually moved during the speech. Prices went from, I don't know where they were before he announced it, to 200, 300 naira per liter. Over 600 naira per liter. It seems that he's been acting to catch people off guard and keep people on their toes. Is that fair?
Well, so here's the thing. Is it fair? It's a good question. People said, so fuel subsidy provision in the budget, which came to about, 3.6 trillion naira. The allocation, and by the way, we spent about $10 billion on this last year or so. So it's been eating up a lot of our revenues.
Yes, indeed,
the provision was supposed to end. Yeah, go ahead.
In the first 6 months of this year, you've spent $7.6 billion on fuel subsidies.
Right, and so the provision was to run out at the end of this month, but he didn't wait till the end of the month to announce that it was removed. He just said fuel subsidies are gone. We don't have the money for it, and that's it. Now, what his critics have said is that he should have given people time to adjust. But then the flip side of that is we've been talking about fuel subsidies forever and how much they eat up Nigeria's revenues and how they should have been gone ages ago. The last administration secured an $800 million loan from the World Bank for quote-unquote palliatives or interventions, basically to be able to cushion the blow for people. So people knew this was coming. But still, I guess it really did, catch a few people off guard, because the next day, the state oil company, the NNPC, National Petroleum Corporation Limited, jacked up prices at its fuel station. So was it fair? You can make an argument that it wasn't. People deserve more time. But on the other hand, if you look at where the government is in terms of revenues, it had to go. And I have been a proponent for removing fuel subsidies. So he does that. And then next thing you know, he's talking about how, in fact, in the same speech, he said that monetary policy needs thorough house cleaning, which people took as a signal that Emefiele, who kind of, maybe his Icarus, he flew too close to the sun, right? That was a signal that he probably, the house cleaning meant that they had to be swept out. And then he gets kicked out. And then we had the exchange rate thing just yesterday, where they took off the cap at a window where the CBN introduced this window back in 2017, and the currency was supposed to freely float, but it was the invisible hand, and they were still keeping it, they were still managing it. He removed that, and then he kicks out the EFCC guy the same day. So, I mean, he's just, for us in the media, he's really making us work for our salaries. Because we've just been one update after another. You have to keep on top
of it all. There is an argument that some of this is in some ways distractionary, because to some extent, for example, when the fuel subsidy is removed, it actually leads to an increase in fuel prices. It should read through to all prices and inflation. And there are some that argue that actually removing the fuel prices will ultimately lead to a tightening of financial conditions. And yet the markets have taken it as a positive, and all of these steps as positives. Why has it been necessary to also go down this route of arresting the central bank governor, etc.?
Yeah, so the central bank governor, as you said correctly in your intro, the charges against him have not been shared with the public. So we don't know what he's being investigated for. But they said his removal, it was two-pronged. So his removal was to unwind what he's done. I'm sure you heard about the Naira redesign, yes. Which he introduced and gave us only about 90 days or so to get ready.
Yes.
That caused a lot of hardship. It caused a slowdown in GDP. There was a cash scarcity. People were paying Naira to get Naira. It's going to cause a slowdown in GDP. It's, caused hardship for a lot of Nigerians. I mean, the president mentioned that. So doing that, the way he's managed the exchange rates, a number of issues. So removing him was part of the house cleaning the house cleaning quote from the president in his inauguration speech. So that was one, to unwind what he's been doing. And then two, these charges, which we'll find out about at some time, because he's still with the authorities. So that was the second half of that, the shoe that dropped. So that's why he's being held.
Okay. Toma, let's bring it to the studio for a minute. There are two stories going on here. There is the leadership of a country in terms of its economic policies and, setting up the direction of a new presidency. And then there's these other factors, these other events that are going on that involve the individuals that fulfill certain roles. It's important to separate these two things.
Exactly.
Please help us do that.
Exactly. Now, in the case of Emperor Murphy, you see, the issue is, there are two, as you said, there are two different things here. There's one issue of policy, all right, where, some of his policies have been, less than optimal in terms of, especially like the redesign of the Naira, the short-term rate. And the other thing was the lending to government. Look, here in Ghana, we've been complaining that in 2022, Bank of Ghana lent government about, 44 billion cedis or something.
Correct.
MFA has been doing it as a regular thing, year in, year out, which is why I believe President Buhari himself allowed him to get away with so many things. You understand?
Because he was financing the government.
Yes, he was financing the government on the cheap.
Policy.
Yeah. But now, let's be clear about something. I think the suspension from being governor of Bank of Ghana and the SSS arrest of the suspended governor are two different things.
Right.
He has been in the SSS crosshairs since December last year, when they took him to the Federal High Court and could not get what they wanted because they wanted to arrest him then. And the same for procedure. The Federal High Court judge said that SSS used wrong procedure. All right. He's been caught up in all sorts of political things. One accusation is terrorism. Well, look, I don't know how true that is. He's been accused of giving support to Eastern separatists, the so-called Republic of Biafra separatist thing, all right? And, of course, there is the issue of corruption in his office, which has to be taken very serious because, look, we are here in Ghana. My colleagues in Nigeria will be able to explain this thing better because it's only in Nigeria that some of these things can be regarded as normal. A sitting governor of the central bank running for president. Why he's still the governor of the central bank? Come on. These are things that, were from the 60s and the 70s in Africa when it was... it's only in Nigeria such things can still happen. But, as much as as I'm sitting here, I don't have any evidence, but you have to be suspicious when a sitting central bank governor is running for president of a country as large as Nigeria with the kind of money it requires to spend on your campaign. And he was running for, I'm sure if you investigate it, they will discover he's stolen billions. So I think so. Those things are two. He's been taken out of office because of his policy, bad policies. And he's been arrested because of his ultimately criminal activities. Two different.
Well, we await to see what those investigations unearth. Of course, we always hope that due process must be followed in all of these, in order that any outcomes are founded in trust that process has been followed. But the important thing here is that these actions of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, president of Nigeria, have caused everyone to prick up their ears. Now, Arnold Dublin-Green You are someone who has watched markets, and you've watched African markets for almost a decade or more now. Specifically Africa. You've been in the markets for longer than a decade, but specifically Africa, almost a decade. The question I have for you is, this cycle, this part of the cycle that Nigeria seems to be in, this moment of renaissance, is it new, or is it just because it's a new president? What's actually happening here?
I guess for Nigeria, it is welcome and new, although still early to say. I mean, you can even look at it from the market reaction, where you can see the local equity markets rallying, I think, 52-week high or higher since 2008. So it's welcome, but more needs to be done. I think we all like the FX unification. We know that the effects went crazy. Was it from 2015? Probably wrote us, so correct me if I'm wrong. 2015, when Nigerian reserves started going low, the central bank governor decided to ban 41 items that created a whole 5 or 6 different exchange rates.
So he banned 41 items that they would not be supply of foreign exchange to import those things.
Exactly.
But there were some people who had exemptions, or there were some.
Well, the idea of it was to develop a local market. I mean, Nigeria, we were importing things like toothpicks,
right,
for example. So the idea was to boost and to encourage local markets, and that's something we see all the time. I think Ghana did the same thing last year as well.
We're doing it
but
now,
anyway,
right?
the point was to encourage local producers, to discourage importing or just wastage of US dollar. But regardless, you know how people are, you know how the market works. It still created a black market.
Yes.
So you then had this created two parallel currency markets, or several currency markets, but 2 economies. So you have the Nigeria that operates in the black markets, and then you had the Nigeria that operates in the official rates.
Right.
And then that caused a backlog as well. Reuters reported last week, which I watched enthusiastically. The IAIA letting us know that 36% of the global airlines that have funds stuck in country, 36% was in Nigeria, about $812 million or so. Wow. And Nigeria has about $12 billion worth of backlog as well of effects. So regardless of the unification, I think there can't be a proper relief for me and for the economy until whoever the new central bank governor might be, or whoever it is that comes into place, until we figure out what to do with the backlog. So Tinubu seems to be making all the right noises, he's making all the right moves, but there's still more that needs to be done, and technically there's still more we need to see.
Excellent. Now, we don't know a lot about the central bank governor who has been ennobled so far. Rotas, can you give us a little bit about him? We know he was a leader of Zenith Bank for about 10 years. He's at the pinnacle of banking in Nigeria. He's an engineer and a finance guy. Do we know more about him than that?
Yeah, what's his name? Shunobi or so. He also was the head of NIBS, the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System,
right,
which handles the infrastructure for payments. He introduced, he facilitated the introduction of instant payments that allows people to use their cards on point of sale machines. And Asaase he's a technocrat. I think he was nominated by President Buhari to the board of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He's come to some pedigree. Now, is he going to remain in that position? I think he's just keeping the seat warm until someone else is nominated to take over. But he's going to be there in the interim. But he's a safe pair of hands. Pretty smart guy. What we pretty much know about him is his technical background, tech background. Of course, you mentioned him being in charge of one of the tier 1 banks. So he's a safe pair of hands, and but I don't see him. Well, hey, let me not say what I don't know. He could be picked as the next central bank governor. It all depends on the president's, the powers that be. But I think Tinubu just released a list of advisors earlier on this afternoon, and he essentially, I think he's known for picking talented people from his time as governor of Lagos State. So, but yeah, to answer your question, the gentleman that's in charge now, since Emefiele was removed, he's safe pair of hands, smart guy, he's well respected, and don't be any surprises while he's in charge.
Toma, isn't that what we want from a central bank governor?
That's
as a technocrat?
That's exactly what it is.
Let's say his name again, Faloshodun Adebisi Shonubi. He's a former deputy governor at the bank.
And that's why they've put him there. They've put him there to bring the position of governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria back to what it is supposed to be,
right? As
different from the aberration that Emperor Murphy created. Emperor Murphy more or less he politicized the position. He meshed it in all kinds of murky things, and that is largely what led him down the wrong path in terms of policy as well. Because I certainly agree with the argument that he tried to change the currency just before the elections in order to affect certain people, affect the political direction of the country and things like that. I think they've just pushed Shonubi as being he's a pure technocrat to bring back the office, to reel it in and put it back the way it is supposed to be. Whether he continues, whether he's selected by the president to continue after this interim period or not, the fact that whoever is going to be there will now become more of a traditional central bank governor, as different from a monetary policy emperor.
Right. So let me ask you this question, and it's an important one now. Since we're talking about central bank independence, we've always talked, in every jurisdiction, we talk about the importance of central bank independence, the ability for central banks to make their decisions, monetary decisions, not fiscal, without interference from the political era. Now, we've all been through this period now where we've all had our central banks doing asset purchases, basically writing overdrafts to the government, allowing the government to continue to spend when things got tough. Now, it could be said, in the case of the Nigerian central bank governor, that he was facilitating the actions of the president and the presidency and the administration, and therefore he was no longer independent. Now, the same parallel argument could be made about places like Ghana, where the central bank, or rather, better to phrase it as, why would the same argument not be made for places like Ghana?
Timing. The Bank of Ghana has been operating a zero financing policy when it comes to financing the government. Since the last IMF program we had under the Mahama administration, that thing was only changed even during, COVID. It was made clear the reason, the particular circumstances why the Bank of Ghana was eventually given overdraft to the government. In the case of 2022, we know that it was because they had closed the international market, we had obligations falling due. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that these were emergency situations. And now we've agreed with the new IMF program, we are going back to zero financing. Emperor Murphy had made it, I'm saying the Emperor Murphy in a very derogatory way. Let's be clear on that. Emperor Murphy had made it a regularity, had become the norm. Since 2017, 2018, it had become the norm long before there was any crisis. In fact, it was his behavior that led to the crisis, not that his behavior was a response to the crisis.
If I remember the number properly, I think it was 400 trillion naira in the space of about 2 years that he printed.
Well, I hope the process...
maybe $49 billion.
I really hope the process puts him where he's meant to be, behind bars.
Now, Arnold, the market sees this as a positive. We are moving into a new era for Nigeria. You have been focused in Ghana, and you saw in Ghana a risk in the last few months that the currency markets would bifurcate because there were different rates, the rates in the black market versus, or rather the rates from FX dealers on the street versus the official rates of the banks. And so you set up CSAN FX to give people a chance to see what the blended rate in Ghana was. This change that's happening in Nigeria now removes the need for this sort of bifurcated marketplace. And you say, I think that this means Nigeria becomes a more attractive market for people to come back to and to reinvest in? Or
I think...
Yes, please explain your position.
Generally. I mean, I think it is. I think for me, it's looking attractive, but not yet attractive. I think I'm more interested in the backlog. Okay. You see, the problem was with the currency controls that came into place in 2015 and the ban on imports that came into place. We had a few rates, right, and then the currency controls stopped or slowed down the exit of currencies to come out. And so you had international indices like Barclays and JP Morgan remove the Nigerian local fixed income markets from their index because they didn't want to encourage foreign investors to come in. What we haven't seen yet is the backlog being cleared. There's still money that's queued up waiting to come out. The unification is great. It's wonderful. It's welcome. Don't get me wrong. It's really welcome. But for me, it's just the clearing of the backlog. Once that clears, then I think it'll be free for all. And you can even see that in the markets, right, where you've got the Eurobond market, which is the dollar bonds and the dollar debts rally as soon as Emefiele got arrested or suspended. As soon as the FX unification came in, you had a 200 bips rally across the curve in the Eurobonds, whereas the local bonds didn't do much. And you see, the local bonds is where, for me, I've always thought local bonds are a greater indicator of the local economy than any other market's security. The local bonds didn't do much. Local bonds they moved about 26 bips through the same period that Eurobonds did. Whereas Eurobonds is foreign investors saying, yay, something's getting done. But the local bonds is investors saying something's getting done, but what needs to be done hasn't been done yet. Right. And now what we have no indication on, or no indication of, is the backlog. We need to know what happens to the backlog before I can actually say, yay, let's come in. Unification is a good step, it's a first step, but for me, the backlog is the second step. So perhaps it's on your marks, get set, but not quite go.
Right. It's fascinating that you make that distinction between the local investors or the local bonds and the Eurobonds. It's fascinating because if you read the international press, let me read you the first paragraph from an article in the FT today. The FT has an article out with title, Baba Go Fast. Nigeria's Tinubu stuns wary investors with quick reforms. Nigeria's new president, in office for less than a month, is pushing to put Africa's largest economy on a reform track that investors have eyed for decades, fueling excitement that money could flow to a nation that many had deemed uninvestable. Those are powerful words from a Western publication about Nigeria.
I think part of it is that, you see, Bola Tinubu has taken people by surprise. You see, just before the election and during the election and immediately aftermath of the election, with all the election petition and all that, the focus had become on his character as different from his policies.
Right.
And everybody had forgotten that even from when he was campaigning, he had announced that he was going to do the sensible things. Like, for example, removing the fuel subsidy, which effectively is a subsidy for the rich, for the middle class and the rich. Right. He had announced he was going to unify the markets, the forex market. He has said all these things. But because of the populist appeal of Peter Obi and the traditional support that Atiku Abubakar was getting, the emphasis now moved to Bola Tinubu and his so-called relationship with drug trafficking and identity theft and that. And right. His policies, the policies he was coming with, got lost in all that noise.
Right.
And now he has come in and is simply doing what he promised to do. And these are things that should really be no-brainers because they are the right things to do. So I think it is impressing people because a lot of people had become kind of depressed that Bola Tinubu had come to power with all these question marks surrounding his personality. All right? And people were really getting worried. Then the man now comes in and all of a sudden he's doing these sensible, prudent economic policies. So of course everybody's going to stand up and start applauding.
Wow. Now, Rotas, all right then, let's focus on the man, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President of Nigeria. As Thomas has said, I mean, it's not a secret. There are areas of his past that people were pointing to as examples of why he was an unsavory president. Maybe this is an argument for why outsiders sometimes come and do the best work because they don't care what people think about them. What can we say, Rotus, about this man? The actions he's taking, are they indications of the journey that we're going on, or is this just a flash in the pan just to say I'm doing the things I said I would do?
Well, so looking at whether it was Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whether it was Peter Obi, whether it was Atiku, these are all pro-market people. So, I mean, coming from where we came from with Buhari, there was nowhere to go but up, right? Because if you think about somebody just on his inauguration day saying fuel subsidies are gone and saying we'll unify exchange rates, he also said interest rates have to come down. This is a pro-market guy. And if, going back to his antecedents in Lagos State, I think we're in for the long haul of somebody who wants to meet his promises. When you compare that to the last administration, funny enough, these guys are the same political party, which is quite interesting.
Yes,
and you've got these two, different ideologies in the way that they've governed so far. But 8 years for one, 16 days for the other, at least at the presidency level. The last administration dragged this subsidy thing for 8 years. They dragged this multiple windows and exchange rates for 8 years. And so it's really appreciated that, by the way, it took Buhari 6 months to get his cabinet in order.
Right.
6 months, right? And funny enough, he now wrote a law. He signed the law into place where the next person, going forward, you have to have 60 days. You have only 60 days to get your cabinet in place. So Tinubu's got 60 days to do that. But you have to see the irony there in the last somebody who took 6 months. That's the next guy has 60 days to do that. But yeah, Tinubu is with what he's done so far. And by the way, the man is a godfather. I mean, he speaks with a lot of. He is an arrogant person. He's proud because he's made the careers. He made the careers of. I mean, the last vice presidents, the Professor Sibanjo. Governors, the governor of Lagos State, the last governor of Lagos State. In fact, the last three governors of Lagos State. I mean, he's put these people in place. He has created careers. So for him, even before, while he was campaigning, he said, "Look, I'm going to remove fuel subsidies, and you can protest all you want. I don't care." So for somebody like him, he can basically. Nigeria needs a strong hand, right? Nigeria needs strong actions because we've kicked the subsidy can, the exchange rate can, so many cans down the road that we're now backed into a corner where you just have to make these tough decisions. And
so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Look, so you have a guy who comes in. The guys who were there before him were doing so terribly that everybody wanted something. Plus, in the time when he was governor of Lagos State, he took the revenue of Lagos State from what? $10 million a month to $100 million a month, some crazy number. Like properly business-minded, properly allocating the resources. Now, the question is, the funds that come from the fuel subsidy not being paid will now, he has said, be reinvested. And a lot of these efforts are now being made to sort of stabilize and normalize the economy. The question is with all of that patronage and with all those people that are supporting him, will he be able to continue on this path if it gets difficult? Or will he have to pivot and appease people like other leaders tend to do in the rest of Africa? Or will he be able to stay as the godfather, as you put him, and stay true to this path?
If he backs, if he backs down from this path, especially on the exchange rates, that would be a disaster because we are starved of foreign direct investments. I think according to the Bureau of Statistics, 2016, 2017, I think we're bringing in about 4 billion a year. It fell to about 680 million or so in the fourth quarter or so of last year or prior. We are starved of FDI. We are starved of foreign portfolio investment. 80% of this market and Arnold can verify that, is domestic investors, right? Foreign investors can't repatriate their money out, so they've left. So if you've now got the markets excited, you read off that FT article, even Bloomberg wrote about how well he's done over this past 16 days. You now backtrack because the things are getting tough, then you have ruined your credibility. So for his sake, and for the sake of what he plans to do for the country, he has to stay the course. And it will get tough. And in his Democracy Day on June 12th, which of course has history in the 1993 election, with MK Abiola, who people say that was the fairest election ever. He had a speech, that's Bola Tinubu president, where he said, I know things are going to get tough, but I need for you Nigerians to sacrifice. Now, what Nigerians want to see is the government sacrifice as well, because you are taking money out of our hands by squeezing our disposable income, by increasing fuel prices. It's necessary. And then, this exchange rate is going to move more to the black market. That's also going to cause an inflationary shock. We want to see you, the presidency, you also cutting corners. No multiple car convoys, thousands or hundreds of thousands of special advisors. So he's going to stay the course. He has to stay the course. He doesn't have a choice because right now he spoke specifically to investors during his inauguration speech. He said to investors, I promise you can repatriate your money out. I promise you that there will be reduced multiple taxation. I promise you there will be reduced interest rates. I promise you that there will be a unified exchange rate. He made all these promises. He absolutely has to stay the course, Kweku. He's got no choice, no matter how tough things get in the meantime.
That fascinating. Then that leads us to this question. Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa. We've always looked to Nigeria for leadership, all of us. And it's fascinating to hear you say, Rotas, no more convoys of like 50 cars. The same stories everywhere. But let me ask all three of you the same question then. I'll start with you, Thomas. Is this the moment where Nigeria, because we need a leader, right? Africa needs leadership. Africa Continental Free Trade Area, Africa Union, ECOWAS, we all need leaders. And it should come from the biggest economy, right? Because the reason we're coming together is to get this sort of the negotiation power of being one. Can Nigeria now move into a position of true leadership and show us guidance in that sense of leadership? Is this that moment?
I don't think that what Bola Tinubu is doing is enough for that. Because Nigeria is a federal state. Power is far more decentralized than in a place like Ghana. All right, and all you need is for 10, 15 state governors to continue doing business as usual. And Bola Tinubu's attitudes here, his approach, if he's trying to like downsize government, everything as Rotas was saying, will just fall flat. You understand? Because you have the state who are even closer to a lot of people still doing the same old thing. And I must tell you that the attitude of state governors in Nigeria since Nigeria started the Third Republic has been hideous. My state, James Ibori, actually tried to escape through Heathrow Airport just as a woman after stealing our money. Even this last election, I've seen videos of state governors stuffing ballot boxes. This last election that brought Bola Tinubu to power. So it's going to require more than the president doing what he's doing. You have to distinguish between two things. One is personal disposition, and the other aspect is policy. When it comes to personal disposition, unfortunately, I will tell you that we can't really expect Bola Tinubu to come back that much. The man is stupendously rich. You see the kind of entourage he carries around. He's not going to do so much low profile himself. But for policy, I think I can see the businessman in him coming out to do what is good for business on the basis that what is good for business will be good for wealth creation across Nigeria. But for it alone to change, look, we have an old saying from Nigeria when I was still back there. They said that, look, Nigeria comprises of two sets of people. One are those people who have become corruptly rich. Another half are those who are waiting for their turn. Yeah. So it's going to take a really Herculean effort to change the mindset of the entire country. There are so many factors that come: religious, ethnic, economic, social. It's going to take more than the effort of one president to.
Arnold, what do you think?
That's why
you're the markets. That's why he says he's escaped. That's why Arnold's here. Arnold, you're the markets guy. What's it going to take for you to go back to Nigeria? Take your business to Nigeria from here in Ghana.
I mean, listen, it's. I sort of agree with. So sorry, I can't remember the chap that just came before me. It's going to take more than one election cycle to make the changes that need to be made. But I always say this. I mean, I'm no leader of any African country, but I always feel like, listen, we have like 50 or 60 problems, right? If you can pick one or two issues and you can go with it and run with it and fix it, then you can start, hopefully, start triggering something, start making something change, start making something happen.
Picking up followers.
I think that Tinubu's on the right, has started off on the right foot. I think, like Rota said, he just has to follow through. It's hard to say whether he will follow through. We hope he will. I feel like I've been here before with Buhari, we've been here before with Jonathan, we've been here before with, we've been here in Ghana, and other countries, in Kenya, in Egypt. In Egypt, we were here after the Arab Spring, when the Arab Spring ended in Egypt, yes. and we've been here before so many times, and everyone starts right, and then all of a sudden something goes left. Right. Hope is not a strategy. I hope it doesn't happen with Tinubu. I hope at least he does a couple of things to make it work. Answer your question, I don't know. The answer is I don't know. But it's on the right track. FX unification looks good. Clearing the backlog to allow FBI and FBIs
to keep happening? What do you need to see that, like, you know, as a trader, you put on a tiny trade first, and then you see how that performs, and maybe it moves against you, but you build confidence, you add a bit more. What do you need to see to keep investing and adding a bit more?
I mean, listen, for me as a trader, I'll start building in a position now with the FX unification, and the removal of fuel subsidy. And then if he decides to clear the backlog, I'll put in more. Right. So he started off right. He started off, he has everyone's attention. He's making he's doing the right things. We just hope he follows through. So for me, it's, when I look at it from a market position, a market perspective, it's what caused FBIs and FDIs to reduce, or what caused guys to run away from the economy in the first place, was because of the currency controls, because of the multi-currency, and he's working on that. So that shows me a reversion. You're going to see the market reverse. You're going to see money come back in. Money's already starting to look coming back in from the headlines that you've read. So he's on the right path. But we generally need more than one election cycle or two election cycles for something to happen. And that goes into a whole conversation about democracy and how long an administration needs to stay in power. That's another conversation for another time.
It's not for another time. That's what happens on the show. You're going to end up in that hole. You can't help it.
No, but for me, it's he's on the right track. Like, we've seen this so many times in so many countries. I remember and I told me to go back, but is it 2013 or 2014 when we had Egypt, and we had a new guy come in who was a general and then became a president, and he was making the right noise, and then Egypt all of a sudden were willing to default. But listen, Tinubu is making the right noises. He's making the right calls, and I just hope he follows through. So it's looking good.
That's what leadership is all about. You set the path, and then your followers join you. Let's see if you can keep pulling the followers with him. Unless typical African pressures come in, people need to eat, and then you fall on the wayside. I'll come to you in a second, Toma. Rotas. Normally, other people will look at your situation and say, what lessons can we learn? I want you to tell us, like, we're Ghana, you're Nigeria, you're our big brother. You tell us, what do you think we should be learning from you right now? I mean, we're in a difficult situation. Political leadership is suffering. Economically, we've tightened our belts beyond what you can imagine. We're only just starting to sniff a dream of coming out of this crisis that we're in. What lessons are there for us from the journey that you're going through right now?
Can Ghana be learning anything from Nigeria at this time with all the mistakes that Nigeria has made? That's a great question. I mean, look, you got to get your fiscal books, your fiscal structure. I think that's the lesson here, because that's That's Nigeria's problem. I think what was Ghana's issue? You guys thought that you struck oil and then you guys went on a spending spree. Yeah. And I think Nana Akufo-Addo is building a $400 million cathedral. I mean, I was there for something last year, and I saw the thing looks like a football stadium. It's really, really huge. So,
space.
Fiscal discipline is the lesson here. Look, and by the way, I need to point this out. There's the CBN Act says that you cannot spend. The Central Bank of Nigeria Act says you cannot spend, or rather, you cannot lend more to the federal government more than 5% of last year's revenues. Now, that was obliterated, but the Senate, before they left, the 9th Senate, before they've gone now, we've got a 10th Senate now, or the legislature particularly, House of National Assembly, they raised the cap to 15%, right? Which suggests that the hole that we are in, the fiscal hole that we are in, suggests that President Tinubu has to probably borrow some more. I may have to lean on the central bank in order to get out of that hole, because we've got a large fiscal deficit. We spent, according to the World Bank, about 96% of our revenues just servicing debt. That's 96 naira out of every 100 naira. So if there's any lesson here, but then, this is why people say, and I hate saying this, but, Africa is a country, because when I mentioned the convoys, you laughed and said that's such an African thing. We all have the same issues. Macky Sall, our brother, is trying to get a third term in office, right? I mean, there's Obasanjo tried to do that, So when you look at a number of these African nations, when you say we should learn from each other, we all keep making the same errors and repeating them over and over again. You don't learn from it. And funny enough, I didn't know Toma was from Delta State when he mentioned Iboria. I'm from Delta as well, so that's you just keep seeing these things over and over again. So if there's any lesson to be learned here, and it's not just a lesson for Ghana, it's for other African nations looking up. It's fiscal discipline and the right leadership. Because if you've got leadership that is only thinking of itself, only thinking of its own interests, and is just spending with reckless abandon, you will put future generations in trouble. Because now the money that should be, and this is you think of opportunity cost and so on. The money that should be going to capital expenditure, that you should be using to build roads and bridges and investing in technology. Our broadband penetration is about 48%. The Tinubu administration, in fact, the Buhari administration wanted to get it to 75% before they left. They never got that. Tinubu wants to get it to 95% by 2025. All these things now, unfortunately, have to be scaled down because you are spending so much money servicing debt, and you have to even borrow more. So when bad decisions are made, when fiscally irresponsible decisions and moves are made, you now have to unwind those things, and it's not going to take you time. We regressed. Nigeria regressed over the last 8 years. I can hardly think of any progress that was made. I struggle to think of progress that was made, meaningful, tangible, real progress under the last administration. So now this administration, as Arnold correctly said, a 4-year cycle, you're not going to see the kind of radical changes you want. It's going to take time, and it's taking time because of the bad decisions and the delays that we've suffered through the last administration. So you got to get it right. You got to be fiscally disciplined. If not, you're not just putting people in the present in trouble. You're delaying the progress of people in the future. So if there's any lesson, it's got to be fiscal discipline.
Phenomenal. Wow, powerful. Such an important. By the way, Africa is a family. 1 second. Me too. I have one to say. I met James Ibori, Wandsworth Prison, 2012. That's all I will say. Anyway, carry on. Who's next?
Okay. A lesson Ghana can learn here is the autonomy of the central bank. Now, I mean, we talk about, the last year, for example, the Bank of Ghana supported government, and it shows that the Bank of Ghana was in bed with government and blah, 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 blah. That's what people say. I mean, some of us also argue that what would have been the alternative if Bank of Ghana had not done what it did, and we had defaulted on our debt obligations, But the issue is that you can now see from Nigeria the cost of not having an independent Bank of Ghana, Central Bank of Nigeria. Central Bank of Nigeria. Look at what Emperor Murphy has taken us through, because he was not independent. He was virtually in bed with a government which has roots as president, has not provided any benefit over the past 8 years. The two of them, both the Central Bank of Nigeria and this inept government, were in bed, and that was really bad.
A price to pay.
The last thing I want to comment
don't get
about,
away.
I'm happy the Reuters talked about this issue about capital expenditure not being made because we are being crowded out by debt servicing. I have been raising this flag for the past 10 years in Ghana. It's in 2013 that our debt servicing obligations first exceeded our capital expenditure. That was in 2013. And when I saw the figures, I've been raising that flag since then. Now see where we are. I'm happy he has mentioned it too, because that is something we need to watch. I mean, you talk, somebody has to put this infrastructure, that infrastructure. But the issue is that we are borrowing to put in infrastructure, which if we had not over-borrowed before, would have been financing from our own treasury, from our own coffers. Now, you want to do an ordinary borehole, you have to go and borrow the money from somewhere because you don't have any fiscal space of your own. That has to stop. That has to change.
My friends, listeners, friends and fellows, both in Ghana and Nigeria and across Africa, unfortunately, we have reached the end of another Asaase Business Roundtable. I'm going to steal an extra minute and give it 30 seconds to Arnold and then 30 seconds to Rotus to give us the final word. Arnold, here we are. Hopefully a new dawn for Nigeria. Final word to you. What's it going to take? Are you jumping on this bandwagon? What message do you have for your clients, your customers, and the listeners?
Famous last words. I want to say I'm jumping on this bandwagon, but I'm nervous. Right. I'm cautiously optimistic. That's what I'd say. Cautiously optimistic. I think that to a degree, I'm partly tired of being negative on Nigeria, tired of being negative on sub-Saharan Africa. So there's a part of me that wants to be optimistic. So I'll run with that. But I'm cautiously optimistic and I'm watchful. I think there's some change coming. The question is, how long is it going to last? I don't know, but I think there's some change coming. So I think, like I said, it's on your marks, get ready, and not quite go yet, but on your marks, get ready. Awesome. Those are my last words.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you will come again. This has been your second time on the show. I'm sure we'll see you again. Rotus, over to you. Final words from afar.
Look, I'm not married yet. I haven't even started a family yet. I'm thinking about the costs. I'm thinking about where I want my kids to go to school. I'm being very selfish. I'm thinking about my future and where I want my kids to school here. I want them to be born here. Yes. A lot of Nigerians want their kids born overseas, so they have a ticket out of the country. Jackpot. I know so many people that have moved to Ghana. I mean, look, I'm talking to you guys right now. I mean, Nigerians that have moved to Ghana and leaving the country. There's an outflow of FX, outflow of Nigerians. People are voting with their feet. I have no choice but to be optimistic.
You'll be welcome here.
I'm desperate. So for the future of this nation, 54% youth unemployment. There's just so many metrics that are just disheartening. He has to succeed. So fingers crossed he said the right things, as Arnold has said already. And I just hope he follows through for the good of this country because we're in a really tight spot.
Well, we'll be checking back in with you, Rotus. Thank you very much. We'll be checking back in with you over the next months and years to make sure that you guys are staying on track. And if we can help you in any way, if we can take any lessons for our guys from you in any way, Charlie, we'll keep talking. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been wonderful to have you on. Right. Well, it's Thursday night. It's almost 8 p.m. We've been Asaase Business Roundtable. We've been talking about a new dawn for Nigeria, cautiously optimistic about what the future brings, a leader who has started his term with brimstone and fire, trying to change culture and systems. You've been listening to Asaase Business Roundtable. Our guests tonight, Rotus Odire, anchor for Arise News TV in Nigeria, Arnold Dublin-Green, founder of founder of Apakan Brokerage and CISA FX, and of course Toma Emire, editor and financial analyst. I've been Kweku Adoboli. We will be back again next week. Thank you for your time, and remember, please always look out for each other.